So we've been answering this question of, if God, why evil? And just recently, my mom texted me about a kid from the church that I used to go to in Knoxville that my dad was the pastor of. And this kid, he was young, and he came and he was with me for a week when I was a counselor at camp. So I really got to know him quite a bit during that week and during my time at home. And just this last week, I got news, found out from my mom that this kid passed away. And it really saddened me, and it made me ask the question that we've been trying to answer is, if God, why does evil happen to good people? And I found out the circumstances. This young man who's an only child, can't be any older than 12 or 13, 11 or 12. He was riding his dirt bike from his parents' house to his grandparents' house. He got to his grandparents' house. His granddad is a pastor, and he was studying the Bible with his granddad. He wanted to be baptized. So he would ride over and he would study the Bible with his granddad, and then he would ride home for supper. And that night, he didn't make it home. And the parents, they had to go out, and they found their son, not alive. And the only child, their only kid. Why does that happen to a good kid who's wanting to study, who's wanting to know God? Why is there any reason for that?
Why do bad things happen to good people? I'm sure you've asked this question at least 100 times in the past 2 months. And to be honest, this is a much bigger discussion than we can have right now in a 2-minute video, but I'll try and frame it this way so that it makes sense. If you wanted to hurt me, I mean really hurt me, sure, you could leave wherever you are right now. You could come to my house or come here to church, to my office, or wherever I happen to be, and you could walk up and you could punch me in the throat, and it would hurt. I've been punched in the throat. It hurts. I'll gag, I'll grab my throat, and I'll be gasping for air and be spitting up stuff. But at the end of the day, I'll be fine. There might be a bruise or something, but I'll be fine. But if you really wanted to hurt me, I mean like for real, you wouldn't actually do anything to me personally, even if you could. I have 3 beautiful children. Noah, who's 6, Benjamin's 3, and little Adeline's 1. And if you really wanted to hurt me, you would punch my children in the throat. You would take my baby girl at 1-year-old and you would hurt her. That would hurt. Here's the thing. The scriptures are pretty clear. The devil and Jesus, the devil and God are at war. The problem is, the devil already knows how the war ends. The devil knows he loses. He will lose in the end. And so if you've ever been in a fight, you probably haven't, and I don't recommend it, but if you know anything about fighting, if you're losing, or at least you think you're gonna lose, or you're probably gonna lose, you go down swinging really, really hard to try and hurt your opponent. I think a lot of times when we think of this question, why do bad things happen to good people, we totally leave out of the equation the reality that a devil exists. Yes, God is all powerful. Yes, God is omniscient. Yes, God loves. But the reality is there's also an enemy. The scriptures teach that we have this enemy, Lucifer, the devil himself, who roars about seeking people to devour.
I can tell you for a matter of fact that family is hurting right now. And I can promise you that the devil is quite happy with himself. Anything to make them question, anything to make them hate God or despise God for these things that happened. And I think a lot of the times we kind of lose sight of this. Something bad happens and we think, God, you're all powerful. Why didn't you stop this? Why didn't you prevent this thing from happening?
Now here's the thing. It's really not because he cares about you. It's really not because he thinks you have all this great whatever. He doesn't care about you. He cares about one thing. He doesn't care about your family, doesn't care about your friends or your school or whatever.
But the devil is trying to do anything he can, everything he can, at any opportunity to hurt God.
So how do you hurt God? You go after the ones he loves. You go after and you hurt the ones that God is ready and willing to do anything for, including die for. If you come swinging and you're at my house and I think you're gonna attack my children, I'm happy to take punches for my children. Or worse, yeah, of course I would die for my children because I love them and I want them to live. That's the God that you and I have. The devil wants to hurt God. The way he hurts God is by going after and hurting and attacking those whom God is desperately in love with. Doesn't explain everything, doesn't answer the question why or all of the whys. Because I'm sure right now you're thinking of, well, yes, but, or what about, or yes, but, and I understand all of that. And that is part of a bigger discussion. But at least I think this is a place to start the conversation. Understanding that there is a devil who is our enemy because he's the enemy of God. And that's how he attacks, and that's how he hurts God, is by attacking